get started with a practical example, I first want to go over how to use a breadboard, which is a helpful tool for building and prototyping circuits quickly. The focus for this course is how to use an Arduino, so we won't be getting into the nitty-gritty of circuit design, but we will be making some common beginner circuits for each of our practical examples. Breadboards can be a little tricky to understand at first, but we're going to do some practice examples that should help a lot. And lastly, we're going to make the LED circuit shown here. Let's first discuss how a circuit works in the first place. And in a circuit, you will have components. And these components can include anything from resistors to LEDs to specialized integrated circuits. So these are our components. And these components are connected together with copper wires to form a circuit. And on one end of the circuit, it's connected to ground. So ground looks like that. This is also 0 volts. And then on the other end of the circuit, we have the supply voltage. And connecting the ends of the circuit to ground and 5 volts is what powers the circuit, as current will flow from 5 volts through the wires and the components finally reaching ground. Now, the tricky part about using breadboards is remembering where the wires are in the breadboard. And Tinkercad does a pretty good job of showing us where they are. So when I hover over one of these holes, which would be where our components and wires go, we see that the application highlights a line of holes green. And what that means is that those holes are all connected with copper wires inside the breadboard. So the side rails here are marked with a negative black and a positive red. And these are the conventions for ground and supply voltage. This middle space is where we would put the components of the circuit. And if I were to hover over one of these holes, we get this vertical line of connected holes that lines up with this number on the side here. The last thing that I want to point out to you about breadboards is notice how it doesn't connect to the other side of the breadboard. So next, I want to go through some examples, and we have 10 practice problems here. And what I want to do is I'm going to go through 2 of these practice problems with you. And then I want you to pause the video and try the remaining questions yourself, and then unpause the video and we'll go through the answers together. So the first one that I want to do with you is number 1. So is hole A1 and B1 connected? So if we go over to our Tinkercad application here and I find A1, so A1, and we hover over that hole, we see that B1 is also highlighted in green. So those two are connected. The next question I want to go through is number 7. So is hole negative bottom rail 1 and negative bottom rail 25 connected? So this is the negative bottom rail, and the row 1 is right here. And negative bottom rail 25 is right over here. And we see when I hover over one of these, the other one is highlighted green, so those two are connected. All right, so now I want you to pause the video and go through the remaining 8 questions by yourself, and then you can unpause it and I'll show you the answers for the remaining. So you should now have tried each of the 10 questions, and here are the answers for all of them. The next set of examples we're going to go through is determining whether or not 2 components are connected together or not. So for the 2 up top here, we have 2 resistors, and I want to know if these 2 components are connected together. So we've got a terminal here, and we don't see that connected to anything, but on the other terminal, we see that it's connected to this resistor right here. So these 2 components are in fact connected together. So now let's take a look at the other one. So we see on this terminal, it's not connected to anything. On this terminal, we have it connected to a wire, which is then connecting it to row 24. But we see that despite that, it's still not connecting to this other component here. So now I want you to go through each of these examples, go through each of these and say yes or no. Yes, this is connected, or no, this is not connected. Let's go through each of these examples. So we have component 1 here, and component 1, one of its terminals is connected to this green wire. And we see if we follow that wire, we see that it is in fact connected to component 2. If we go down here, we have component 1. It's got 2 terminals, and we see even though it's really close to component 2, these 2 components are not connected together. We see that component 1 is connected to this black wire that's connected to the ground rail. We see that there's another wire that's connected to this ground rail that's going up and connecting to component 2. And then our last one, we've got component 1, right? Component 1 has four terminals here. And we see on terminal 2A, we've got component 2 directly connected to it. And on the Arduino, we have the ground pins. So there's a few ground pins. I'm going to choose this one. And let's connect the ground pin to the negative part of the power rail. So that negative black power rail, okay? Then let's find our 5 volts on the Arduino and connect that to the positive part of the power rail, so the red. Okay. And just for convention's sake, let's color code these the correct way. So let's find our LED on the side panel here. So let's bring it here, and I'll just place it right there. And then I'm going to add a resistor. So add a resistor, rotate it around, and I'm going to connect it to one of the ends of the LED. And all of this resistor is doing is limiting the flow of the current so we don't damage the LED. So we can change that to a 500 ohm resistor. And now let's connect these 2 components to form a circuit. So I'm going to connect this end of the resistor, to ground. I'm going to connect that to ground. So that is connected to ground, as we can see. And to power this LED, I'm just going to connect that to the power supply, like so. So there we have our LED circuit, which we're going to be using a lot for the remainder of the course. If you wanted to see this LED turn on, all you have to do is start the simulation, and we've got our LED on.